This is the Post Shift Podcast, a raw look at the hospitality industry.
Cool. Just adding to the repertoire at all times. Like I'm at almost 150 episodes for the podcast now. So,
wow.
Podcast every single day, Monday to Friday, has been a lot. But plus a little bit of the other work that I picked up. I'm co-chair of a charity out of Toronto right now and every week we give our grants to hospitality people. So that's 2-3 hours a week. And then BC Spirits is 25-30 hours a week. And then I'm doing some stuff with Fever Tree, which is another 5 to 10 hours a week.
That doesn't leave a lot of extra time for you, does it?
I don't mind. Me personally, I don't need a lot of me time. My me time is working. So, that's just the nature of my beast. I've always been a workhorse. So, I still slot out time for my family, but me time doesn't really matter to me. Like, my me time is updating books and doing articles and blog posts and doing videos and stuff. That's where I still fall in love with things.
A true entrepreneurial spirit, right?
I've been working full time since I was 13. So, it's always been the way, go to school full time, work full time. You don't have weekends. You work every day. There's no such thing as days off, that sort of thing.
Yeah, no, I hear that. And I've gone right back to that. I thought I was crawling out of that a bit. And now it's like I'm back in my 20s with not as much energy, but more, but with better ideas. And you get better kind of grasp on reality.
better ideas, more knowledge, less energy. It's this sort of this sliding scale that crosses over somewhere at like 25, 30. And any time after that, you gain more knowledge, but you lose the energy to do it.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm feeling like, although I am having to dig deep right now to keep up and keep my energy levels up. And yeah, that's not bad. So
let's go back to what's your origin story? How did you get in the industry? Have you always been in the industry?
I have been. I've been in the hospitality industry since I was about 14, and I've always cooked or bartended or done something in the hospitality industry to pay my way through school. And there was an opportunity to buy a tiny little coffee kiosk, and that was in 1996. And so I quit school and I just bought it anyway. And it turned out I bought myself a full-time job for the next 24 years.
What were you going to school for?
For everything. Mostly geography. I was super into geography and biochem. And
wow.
I kind of took a bit of everything. I never took any business courses, and I never took any mathematics, really. I avoided those as much as I could, and didn't take any accounting classes, which is too bad because I could have used them.
And it's always been in Victoria?
It's always been in Victoria, yeah. I didn't grow up here, but I ended up here, and I haven't turned back. I love Victoria. It's a beautiful town.
So what made you decide to buy a coffee kiosk?
Well, I was an employee there as a barista, and this goes back to like 1994, 95, and there were the industry of specialty coffee was just starting to crest. It was just starting to move up a little bit, and the idea of being a barista to me at that time was being an older character from Italy in a long black apron, and that was going to be my job for the rest of my life, and there'd be Social Security, and there'd be a gold watch at the end of it, and I didn't think, well, that just doesn't happen when you own your own business, regardless of what it is. But at the time, I had a real passion for coffee and trying to make it taste better every job I had. So even if I was a cook somewhere or a bar back or something, I would always gravitate towards the coffee station, especially if there was an espresso machine. And I was always tinkering, trying to make it taste better how I like it. And so given the opportunity to basically buy my own job, I did. And that started a long career of just being so thrilled about being in coffee. I'm always having to learn something new. My techniques are always changing, even though some of my employees will say my techniques are archaic. And to that I say they may be archaic, but they still taste better than yours.
Do you find, like, I always like to remind kids when I'm doing these sort of sessions, especially for people who've been in business or been writing or doing stuff for a long period of time, like 1996, there was no online resources. Like there was no, like you didn't have a smartphone where you could go, oh, what's the optimal weight and what's your optimal shot weight and all that sort of stuff. There's none of that. And I would have probably hesitated to say there wasn't a lot of coffee espresso books that you could even reference.
No, there was about 2 books that I bought immediately. One was by Ernesto Ely, and it was The Chemistry of Espresso. And Ernesto Ely is part of the Ely family. He's now deceased, and he really kind of single-handedly changed how people approach the espresso. He put the chemistry back into it, and he took it from this really intense, everything was consistency and proportions. And he did that so well. He was so inspiring. And I got to meet him before he died, and I got my books totally signed like a little fanboy.
As you do.
As you do at a trade show. But you're right. There was no big internet presence yet. It was coming very close. It came very quickly in coffee, actually, but it wasn't there at the time. And so the other book I always still go back to is a book by David Schomer, who wrote a book about making espresso that blew everyone's minds. And he operates and continues to operate cafes in Seattle. And he's always been my hero. And his book and Ernesto Ely's book are 2 that I love those books. And they were that's what kind of taught me about passion in coffee. And then very quickly, there were two computer sites or like chat rooms that came on the internet very quickly in the early days. One was called Coffee Geek, and it was out of Vancouver, and it went international. And he provided a platform for baristas to talk to each other and to share ideas. And there was a Victoria website also around the same time called the Coffee Crew, and the Coffee Crew went around and they critiqued cafes on Vancouver Island, and they talked about coffee, and they also provided a great platform for people to talk. And those were the first two major presents that you were able to see on the internet of coffee back in the late 90s.
Was there a period of time, even with your passion and obviously your exploration into knowledge, was there a period of time where you just felt like you were banging your head against a wall in the way of acceptance of proper coffee culture in Victoria, or was the progression pretty quick? Like, do people adapt and go, oh, okay, I understand that this espresso shouldn't taste like burnt ashtrays and should taste relatively decent?
It's amazing how quickly it happened, and it could be the people in Victoria or the people in this part the planet, that being the Pacific Coast, kind of was prime for this. The people here have good palates, are interested in things. But I think what really turns people on is tasting. And once you taste what a good espresso can be, it's not what you think. And it changes people's minds right away. And once they have it, you almost can't go back. So I think Victoria in our part of the world really adopted specialty coffee in a way that still other parts of the world haven't yet. Yeah.
I find from traveling, people always think that you can get good espresso in like Paris and good espresso in Rome and like all these romantic places that are romanticized about the traditional old school espresso culture. And I've traveled to a lot of cities that everybody reads about, and go to some cafes that are revered, and I'm just like, oh no, this is not what this is not right. This is not what I'm used to back home. This is not what I class as an espresso place to get espresso.
No, well, so many times, and it doesn't happen as often anymore, but it used to happen regularly. I would have customers come back from vacation to Italy, and they would come in, they'd say, oh, I love your espresso, but it's not as good as the Italian espresso I just had. And I would look at them, and I know full well that, technically my espresso is probably better. It's made to a certain standard, and, it's not burnt, and it tastes delicious. And I would always ask them, so when you were having this beautiful espresso, were you in a piazza somewhere? They're like, oh yeah. And were you smoking a cigarette, watching beautiful people walk by? They'd be like, oh yeah. I'm like, well, yeah, I can't compete with that. It's an environment, man. It's like that will always be the best espresso you ever have, regardless of. My
kiosk doesn't stand up to the piazza.
No, it doesn't. You can watch a million buses go by from my kiosk at the time, but it's not the same thing as watching beautiful Italian people walk by you on their daily business.
So when did you get into the roasting side of things? Was that from the get-go, or did you progress from having a coffee shop buying in beans to going, okay, well, if I really want to control everything, I need to do it all myself?
Yeah, I progressed. When I started, I was a full-on barista, and I owned that title and I owned that job. And there was this other cafe in town in Victoria at the same time, Cafe Fantastico, and they put a big emphasis on being a coffee roaster. And so we were kind of coming at it from very different paths. I eventually, about 10 years ago, maybe, got into coffee roasting in a big way. And I immediately stopped carrying other people's espresso, and I just started to focus on my own, and I just haven't looked back from there. The control is addictive.
What is it specifically about coffee roasting that changes your perception as a barista, as well as someone who focuses on the macro of coffee?
Being a coffee roaster changes how I felt about coffee, because it kind of bridged a lot of gaps for me. I was able to take my cooking experience as a cook and my barista experience, and I was never able, or I always struggled to try to get the coffee that tastes exactly how I wanted it to as a barista. I would get close, but you just didn't have the control until I was an actual coffee roaster, and that filled in all the kind of gaps, and I was able to fully control where the coffee came from, first of all, the quality of the coffee I was buying, because you can never tell what quality of green beans you're buying when they're already cooked. So it was just it just opened up my whole coffee world. It evened it out. so that I could see more, I could learn more. It made everything that I knew as a barista and a cook, it made it make a lot of sense to me. So being a coffee roaster was like the umbrella job of the coffee industry. But now I've kind of even gone beyond that, because there were still some holes to fill. And then how I'm trying to fill those holes currently is by traveling the world and buying coffee and meeting the producers and understanding the agriculture and the business of transportation and the business of growing coffee. It's completing my journey, so to speak.
So talking about business, what were obviously there's going to be glaring things in the very beginning that you were just like, oh shit, I didn't think of that. What was the biggest learning curve for you? Like, cause I always talk about, as hospitality people, we're very passionate people, and we want to give the best product. We want to give the best service. We want to give the best of everything. And it's very from the heart. It's a very different, hospitality is a very different industry than most businesses, because there is so much passion behind it. And money is always sort of like, it's a thing that's in our head, but it's always like a backseat to what we really want to achieve. What were the big learning curves you had to take from that super passionate barista, all of a sudden dropping out of school and buying a coffee kiosk, to now?
Well, remember when I said I didn't take any accounting courses in school? If I could turn back time, which it kind of feels like we're doing that right now in this age, if you can turn back time, I would have paid way more attention to treating my business like a business. Forever, I just didn't know. I didn't have the expertise. I didn't have the knowledge. My parents weren't in business, so I didn't grow up in a business house. I grew up in an arts house, and I played a lot of hacky sack. And the whole concept of being astute in your business, it didn't ever occur to me until just like maybe 5 years ago, and I changed from being a proprietor to being an incorporated business, and I got myself a business coach who helped me go through the process of starting to learn what it was like to be a business person, not just someone who owns their own job. And those two things are so very different in hindsight. And really, that transformation, the ability to treat my business the way it deserves to be treated, allowed me to treat my own person how I needed to be treated, and my family, because everything became more balanced at that point in my life.
So you've sort of, before we'll get into COVID in a bit, but you were sort of, now that you've sort of got that, I wouldn't say freedom, but that little bit more extra time, what were you, I know that we chatted and you've been moving into chocolate and a few other things.
Yeah, I've been traveling lots to origin countries and picking up ingredients that I'm interested in. And the one in particular is chocolate. I've fallen head over heels for the cacao industry. So now I'm buying beans from a not-for-profit exporter out of Nicaragua. There's a small co-op that they operate, and I've been down there and I've met them, and I've tasted the chocolate or the cacao, sorry. And so now I'm making 100% bars with this fabulous chocolate for health. And now I'm making other bars. I'm adding some inclusions in there, a little bit of sugar, a little bit of milk here and there, just to try to move more of the cacao beans, because it is such a passion project, not only for the chocolate's sake, but for the people who are growing it. I mean, I have a direct impact now. So every bar that I can sell has an immediate and direct impact on the growers, which I love that. And cacao kind of like 10 to 15 years behind where the specialty coffee industry is. And so I can take what I've learned, whatever that is, from specialty coffee, and I can talk about cacao in a way that people really dig. And we can talk about transparency. We can talk about single origin cacaos and the flavor profiles and what it means to tell that kind of story to my customers. It's been a really fabulous project that I want to spend more time on. Right now, I'm not able to spend as much time on it as I'd like, but I'm getting to it.
Do you feel that change of mentality 5 years ago, incorporating and sort of setting your business up as a business, sort of reset everything and put you back to a point where you reinvigorated a passion about something else, where 24 years ago it was coffee, and then now with that sort of reinvigoration, you've got this sort of massive passion for chocolate?
Yeah, I mean, being able, I always refer to that transformation time in terms of the classic sci-fi thriller, The Fly. And I felt like I was a combination of Dr. Brundle and the Fly. And when I incorporated, I pulled those two entities apart, and I became 2% Jazz on one side and Sam Jones on the other side. And that really did create the some space for me to find passion in other things like photography, chocolate, and business actually as well. I found a real passion for developing strong, solid business models.
Nice. So now that the horrible pandemic has sort of changed our landscape forever, how has it changed business for you?
Well, in almost every way, I guess, is the short and sweet answer, but it's dropped. I mean, my whole sailing program is dropped by over 80%. My cafes that I was able to keep open are, they're open, but they're not thriving. But I guess it's made me kind of rethink what I need to be doing. And planning for the next 12 to 18 months is being it's an exercise that I continue to struggle with, really, and I don't really know where it's going to lead. I have a couple really good ideas that I'm kind of putting pen to paper on right now. I've got a couple projects. I'm actually building a drive-through cafe right now, and that project's going on still, even under COVID terms. And I've got this other project that's coffee related that's about to go as well. So I'm keeping busy. I'm having to focus on the employees I was able to keep. I'm also focused on keeping my brick and mortar business open, because it's been there for so many years that this can't be the thing to take it out. So I'm kind of struggling to figure out how to do all those things, new projects, maintain some kind of stability, and have a place for my employees to come back to.
Do you think that the government has put enough support for the hospitality industry into play yet?
That's a hard question, Sean. I think they've done a tremendous job insofar as what they have offered. I know that there's been a lot of people who are going to be applying for all the funding they're able to. I haven't until today. I finally applied for the $40,000 dollars offered by the government. And I did that a couple hours ago, and that kind of felt weird and odd because as much as I want the help, I don't want to go in further into debt, where I'm already struggling with paying my rent, and having it deferred is momentarily helpful, but it's not sustainable if this continues on. So there are a lot of common struggles. I think that the government is slow in a couple of their programs, like the employee benefit program. I'm still waiting for that one. That's the one that's going to be a blessing for sure. I'll be able to hire back my employees, at least a few of them, as I'm able to. And it'll just give my business the injection that it needs, because it is backdated to March 15th. I've been open the whole time and been paying people whether there's business or not. So that will really help kind of top up the coffers a bit.
Do your staff appreciate your efforts in staying open and pushing, even when there isn't any business? And obviously from a culture and a passion point of view, you want to keep as many people employed, but from a business point of view, there's a certain point where you're just going to go, I can't do this. Are they appreciative of it all?
Yeah, without speaking for my employees necessarily, I do feel like as this was all happening, I was very open with everyone, told them exactly what I was planning on doing, and I had to lay off all my hourly employees all on the same time, which was just god awful. And I kept my salaried employees, because those are going to be the core team that I'm going to bring back. And over the last couple of years, I've been very open with all my employees about my bank account balances, and how the company's doing. I mean, I'm very transparent at the best of times. So when this all happened, that didn't change. I became far more transparent even, and there were tears, there was oh my God, there was all of those things, and that was just coming from me to my employees. I was feeling awful at first about what I had to do, but they were so good. They all understood. They all understood when they couldn't come back to work, and the ones that I asked to stay were really eager and really happy to be able to keep their jobs, and to have this almost a challenge, like, we will make this. And it gave us something to really drive towards, and that passion word just keeps coming up. Like, they're getting more passionate. My cook is more passionate. My coffee roaster is more passionate. My cashiers are passionate about giving the best customer service they can right now. And all of that is so important. And that keeps me active, and it keeps me wanting to do this. And my customers, they're also really appreciative too. They come in for something small, like a coffee and a cookie. It doesn't really feel like it's super important, but it breaks up their day. I mean, they've still got to work. They're working in the hospitals, or they're the police, or they have to come into their office, and they need something to say it's not all bad. There's some sense of,
normality.
Whatever normality means right now. And and my employees are really, really thrilled to be able to be providing that for other people. And that's making me smile in these hard times, for sure.
Well, I really appreciate your time, sir. I know that we've been trying to tee this up for a couple of weeks, but I appreciate your time. I know that you're busy, and I'm really ecstatic that you've got plans post all this that are coming to fruition as well, because I think that's the hardest thing right now. A lot of restaurateurs have this sort of one lane, one highway of information, of thinking, and they're sort of just focusing on reopening. Whereas I think the industry is going to be very different after this, and diversification of anyone's business is kind of going to be a necessity.
I agree, and I think we should not be thinking about what we're going to do in our businesses in June if we open up. I think we need to be thinking long term, 12 months, 18 months out. What our cocktail bar is going to look like when you can only fit half the people or 25% of the people in them. What are cafes going to look like in the future? These are the questions that keep me up at night and not smiling. However, there's opportunity out there for people who can think beyond this, and it's made me really refocus and get back some purpose to businesses. And I was thinking about this even before COVID, but like, what does it mean to be a successful business? It's not the amount of cafes you have. It's not your bank account. It's what you can provide and give back to your community, whether it's the community of your customers who are buying your coffee or the communities where you are buying the coffee, and the producers and the farmers. Those are two of my communities that I want to add value to somehow. And COVID has really made that feeling so much stronger as how can we participate to be a global help, not just a drain, not just taking from this person and taking from this person, but how do we give back? And that to me is how businesses should be determining their successes.
Wow, that was a perfect
and pay your suppliers and pay your suppliers. Goddamn, pay your suppliers, because if when we all come back from this, we need the coffee purveyors, we need the Cisco's of the world, we need the tiny grocers and the farmers all to be there. Otherwise, we don't have a supply chain. So even if you're closed right now, or if you're partially open, don't defer, don't not pay your suppliers. You are going to need them when this all comes back. And if I could say one thing to everyone, that's it, man. Pay your suppliers. They need it. And we need all of our suppliers to be there when we come back.
Well, thank you very much again, sir. That was an awesome episode. I'm really happy with that.
Thanks, Shawn. It was a real pleasure talking to you, and thanks for the opportunity.
Oh, thanks, buddy. I'll chat to you all soon.
Anytime, man. Anytime. You take care of yourself and wash your hands.
Thanks, buddy. Bye.
Okay. Take care, man. Bye.
Thanks for listening, Pose Shifters. Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode. I really enjoy sitting down with friends and peers and just chatting about the industry and getting down to the nuts and bolts of what's really going on out there. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, everything on all the platforms. Just hit it up and I'll do my best to answer any queries or questions you have. I'll see you next week, guys. Bye.